So we got some starter fluid in there. Let's see if it'll run. Working on this Miller welder generator. Last time we went ahead and tore into it and we found out the issues with it. We were going to have to either find a lot of parts for it or decide on whether we're going to replace it with something else. Well, neither of those two things were a possibility, actually, either due to cost or due to availability. The engine turned out to be a Subaru Robin engine, EH65. When I looked online to try and find the parts we needed to redo this engine, just either way out of the price range because you had to order individual parts. Couldn't find kits very much, like gasket sets and other things. And if you bought a replacement engine or something like that, was just way, even a used one was like $1,600, much more than the guy that owns it was willing to pay. So we did some hunting around, and finally I found an EH65 engine in Arizona. It came out of a UTV. It's not the same on the crank and the carburetor intake manifold, that kind of thing, but we're gonna see if we can get it to work. So here, let me show you the engine and what we got and what we're gonna have to do. So this is the engine here that we found. It's the same engine with the exception of the manifold, the carburetor, how that sits on there. And then the biggest part is going to be this shaft. Of course, with a UTV, you can just mount the clutch or the, what is it called? The belt driver that is used on those, what is it called? CVT or whatever it's called. Anyway, that just mounts right onto here, no problem. On this one, on the one that we took out of here, this has threads on it that it threads onto the rotor shaft of the generator. So we will not be able to use it. Also, this shoulder here is different on the other one. So first thing I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and see if we can't get this running. If we can get this running with the crankshaft that way and everything, then we'll go ahead and tear it down and see if we can install the crankshaft off the other one onto this one. Hopefully we can do that. The fortunate part is that we did check the compression and it has good compression. So we know that the cylinders have good compression. So with that said, it looks like things are functioning. Hopefully between the two engines, we can make one engine that runs. So let's get with that. Okay, so I took the cover off here so that I could run the wires that go to the oil pressure sending unit, and also so I could plug in the carburetor, I don't know, solenoid or whatever it is that goes there. I'm gonna leave that carburetor on for now just to see if it'll run. And then I put some fuel in a bottle here so that I could have fuel going to it. I hooked up my battery. I wired up the starter and the wires to the generator. Of course, I made sure there was oil in it. And so let's see if it'll crank over. See, maybe this is not in the right place. I took off all the linkage also right there to the governor and everything, just so I could see if it's not working. Put some starter fluid in here. So we got some starter fluid in there. Let's see if it'll run. Well, there you go, folks. That is running. So I guess my next step is I'm going to change out the manifold here with the carburetor that goes with the welder. And we'll see if we can get it running with that carburetor and everything, so it'll be set up to fit the way it needs to fit there. Then we'll go ahead and get it running again to see if everything's good. And then if everything's good, then we'll start looking at swapping out the crankshaft, which is the important piece, to see if we can get it running with the other crankshaft. We'll have to see if we can polish that crankshaft up. It was pretty scarred up, but we'll see if we can get it fixed. But I wanted to make sure this engine ran with this setup, and it looks like it's a running engine. I went ahead and put the exhaust on there because I didn't want it running with the baffles. Ooh, still hot. So yeah, and this governor, I did check the tension on it. Seemed to be working okay. If I work the throttle here, it seems to work fine. So we'll just go from there then. Okay, take this manifold off. Let me unplug this wire here. Oh well, we'll just set this down and then we'll unhook that wire. There we are. Looks like those gaskets are still good. So I'm just gonna put that other one on there and we'll go from there. This is what I have so far. I went ahead and put the other manifold with the carburetor on it. So this is what I had off of the generator intake, and then of course the new control here to be able to hook up the choke and the and of course the spring for the governor. The one thing that I did just to be sure is I checked this solenoid. It's idle solenoid and it's not any good. So what that means is this thing is always going to run on full throttle. So what I did in the meantime is I backed off the screw here on this so there's no tension on that spring, just so it doesn't run so hard when I turn this on. But yeah, it's supposed to have an idle solenoid that works, so it pulls this back when you have it on idle, and then when you put it on run, it releases the solenoid, and this will let the governor go ahead and push this out this way. Really, there's two things that you have here. Is you have the two rods. One rod is the throttle that goes from the governor to the throttle plate on the carburetor, and it's got a spring around it. That's just to hold tension on it so it doesn't fall out. And then up here you have the same kind of deal. You have this for the choke. As you can see, the choke closes and opens with this one, and it has a little spring that goes to it. This has a choke cable that goes to the front of the welder, which will come and hook up here and pull this choke when you want to choke it. And then over here, all it has is this spring that goes to the governor here, which holds tension. This is the screw that you adjust when you're adjusting the RPM to get your generator to produce at 60 hertz. So once you get that locked in on this one here, all you have to do is once that is locked in to place, then you tighten this one down so it doesn't move. And then that'll be your tension, spring tension that'll be there basically to determine where you want that thing to idle or run at to produce 60 hertz. So we've got this all on here set up. So let's see what else. So that's it. So we just swapped over the stuff. I took off the other manifold. What I did notice is I'm gonna have to change these valve covers, because I think on this one the oil fill is on that side and it has a longer spout, so you can change the oil or put oil in it. So what I'm gonna do is once I get everything fixed, I'll just swap the valve covers from the other one to this one. So that's one thing I have to do. The other thing is, what else do I need to do? Oh yeah, then the other thing, once I get it running, if everything works good, then we gotta take it apart and swap out the crankshaft, so that we can see if that's gonna work for us or not. Of course, I'm gonna try and polish the other one first, and then we'll go ahead and tear this down and get that other one on here. So let's see if I can get it running. Let me get some fuel over here and we'll see if it runs with this carburetor on it. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that before, if you're just swapping the manifold or if you're putting the carburetor, one of the things you have to do is make sure you put these rods for the linkage, this one and this one, connect them where you're going to connect them before you bolt the manifold or the control on. Otherwise, there's no way to put these rods in with the carburetor and manifold already set on there. This one you can by removing the control, but this bottom one you can't. So you either have to remove the carburetor or manifold, or you have to remove this governor rod to be able to hook that in there with the carburetor connected. So just keep that in mind. That took me a little bit more time because I had to take it back off to hook the rods in there. Okay, here we go. See why maybe this thing needs yeah, there we go, needs some throttle there. I guess that's gonna need some tension on this to be able to start. Then we'll back it off whenever it gets to running. We'll try that. Well, I can't hold the choke on while I'm trying this, so maybe we'll just use a little bit of this fluid. Oh, wrong stuff. No wonder it won't start. It'll work good as a lubricant. I ain't gonna be working good as a fuel. This will get her started. Okay, now let's see what happens. Yeah, with no load, that thing tends to just rev up. So yeah, we can't run it that way for too long, and it goes through the fuel pretty quick. Ran my bottle empty real quick. So we know the engine runs. We know it runs with this carburetor. We know it runs with the other carburetor. So the next thing is going to be to tear into it and see if we can't change that crankshaft. Of course, I'm going to have to try and polish that crankshaft and get that aluminum off of it before we go anywhere. I also want to tear into it and make sure that they're the same on the inside. See if that's going to work. If not, then we'll have to go from there, see what we do. Well, folks, I guess that's going to do it for this episode. But please stay tuned, because next time we're going to tear into that UTV engine and we're going to see if we can't get that crankshaft from the original generator engine mounted or put into that other engine, and see if we can't make it to where we can use it on this generator. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and please share this video. Hopefully that'll help me keep bringing this content. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next one.